Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Exploring Genuine Transformation. My name is Lori Beth Goldman, and we are now on episode 7. Woohoo! I've been doing this show for almost 2 months, and this is, again, if you've never watched, this is a show where I am bringing on different coaches, healers, and therapists to and teachers to explore the theme of what is really like how they see transformation. And I'm really interested in having people on the show that are at the leading edge of what it means to transform, not for the sake of getting what you want in life, like getting all the money that you want, like the relationship that you want, but just simply to heal and to be more of who you are, to have a fuller experience of life. So that said, I am so excited for today's episode. I am going to be interviewing, well, interviewing isn't exactly the right word because we're going to be doing another kind of experiment today, but I'm going to be bringing on Troy Cohen, who is a counselor and a coach, and I'm going to bring him on first, and then I will introduce him. So let me... Hope everybody's having an amazing Tuesday. I'm in Washington and the weather's not so great here. It still feels like morning. So we're just waiting for him to come on. Says he's adding. Yay! It worked.
Hello. It worked.
Hi, Troy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I want to introduce to all of our viewers who Troy is. So like I said, Troy Cohen is a coach and counselor, and he has really been making a name for himself online simply by posting whatever arises in his experience. Like it's, his posts are very raw, they're very real, they're exploring the edges of intimacy, they're exploring some of the kind of, it's the way I'd say it, they're obviously very authentic, but they're exploring almost what is acceptable, kind of like what is okay to say online. Like for example, I've seen you post things about, oh, I'm a coach, or I'm working as a counselor and a coach, but like why, like just like the vulnerability of even like who am I really as that, and is it okay to be like sharing the most like sort of personal, vulnerable things? Will people still want to work with me? So that's an example of one of the ways that, and there's so many examples, but that Troy has been basically, like, in my opinion, on the leading edge of really saying what's true and bringing aliveness to a lot of the conversations, I would say conversations actually that are happening online. And a lot of people have started to follow him just because it's just, people can relate. It's just so real and raw. So really, really happy to have you here. And so what Troy and I, most of every show that I've done has basically been an interview where, we pick a topic and then I'm interviewing the person who's here. But today, Troy and I, when we met, and I actually met Troy many years ago when he was just leaving his marriage and starting a totally new life. So it's been really fun to watch you, watch your transformation, basically, and then start to see you online. But when we got together, what we really thought would be fun would be to actually explore Troy's work, explore being in the truth of the moment, which is the title of today's episode, by actually having no agenda and just showing up exactly as we are and seeing what unfolds between us. This is also a way that I like to play in my life and in my work. I love being spontaneous, and I think I'm also a stand and an example of someone who's pretty raw and real and vulnerable. And so we thought it would be really, really fun to play in this way. That said, before we kind of start this experiment and start this, I guess this is an interview, but really it's more of a playground. That said, obviously, and Troy will talk about his work at the end, if he was working with somebody, he'd be playing on this edge but he'd be the one really guiding it. And today, in this little experiment that we're going to do, this playground, we're going to actually just let whatever happens between us and whatever happens inside of us just kind of come up and be in it together. So, um, so that said, is there anything that you'd like to say? As we begin this experiment, I've said a lot.
All sorts of things are popping in my mind to say, but nothing feels urgent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's true right now is that you're feeling like you just want to kind of hang out in the field.
Yeah, there's like this anxious part of me that wants to speak all my insecurities right up front. And I can feel that, but I'm like, no, let's let this kind of flow into a natural opening for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Cool to name that. I'm curious, like, what's the, like, what makes you want to speak those insecurities?
It feels like it's hard for me to relax until I do. Um, that there's something in me that compels me to want to just express what's happening inside me in a way that creates connection with whoever I'm with.
Mm, mm,
I guess I've had a lot of experience of that creating connection. So
mm,
yeah, it just feels like I so appreciate when people do that with me and are really honest and transparent.
mm,
And so I tend to lead with that and it kind of drops things into a more intimate space really quickly.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So I'm sort of curious, like, when you don't speak it right now, what, I mean, you did by basically naming it, but, what then happens inside of you?
Um, it's like the energy builds oftentimes. Sometimes the subject will change and it kind of goes away on its own, but oftentimes it's like this thing that's not being said, and I start to worry that energetically they're going to pick up on it and they're not going to know what it is. So if I don't say what it is, then um, it's just this like uncomfortability that neither of us are
Mm,
naming or even aware of to some degree.
mm,
It just it feels like it drops me into the space and it drops
mm,
us into the space
mm-hmm,
to just
yeah.
because the mind it feels like the mind is always racing with what do I need to hide, what's okay to reveal.
Mm, mm,
And when I just start revealing things, it starts to get quieter in here, and I feel like I have more availability for presence.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that I just feel like a relaxation when I hear that. Mm-hmm,
Mm.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I have a very similar experience to that. Like naming the thing somehow brings us more into connection. And it also sort of, it's what's real. And so, like, even what I'm experiencing right now, it's like this dropping down of like, oh yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to allow for more silence too, for more space between to just be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Someone, Anna, who I don't know, is saying it creates a beautiful flow of connective energy. Thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
great addition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I can feel my body more again. More aware of my breath. And I imagine from that space, I have more capacity for empathy to really tune into the other person. So I'm not so caught up in my own
Mm-hmm.
um, agitated, you know.
Do you think it's by naming it or by sitting in it in the presence of another person? I'm just kind of tracking that in myself. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about it being in the presence of another. A friend of mine said something to me the other day that when she names something, she's able to see that it's not true. It's something about saying it out loud. And we
Mm,
were talking in the context of someone else being a witness, or
mm-hmm.
maybe a Facebook post. There's something about putting it out there that we get to see it in a new way, in a new light.
Mm-hmm.
in a shared presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that feels, I'm sort of like going in and out of my felt experience and then my, you know, curiosities. But it makes me think about how, because I think I feel that in my experience. And then I also know that sometimes I have to be in a very spacious place where I'm not looking to get something from the other in
Mhm.
response. Yeah.
Right.
Because then it
Yeah.
feels, because if I'm looking to get something, then it feels like naming it. It's like, it's almost like I'm a little child. It's like, okay, but are you going to have that right response? And then I'm going to feel soothed. Like there's a
Yeah.
soothing in the share, the soothing and a sort of, yeah, a soothing and a lovingness in the shared presence of naming it when you're just able to sort of self source, but then the other person's there as well.
Yeah.
I don't know
But
if that's your experience, but yeah, that's my.
I like that non-attachment to how they respond. That it's more about the expression of it than what's reflected back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It feels like it's a momentum towards self-love, and that I'm gonna share this thing. I'm gonna have the courage to share this thing, even if it's not received well.
yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And somehow it builds this interesting sort of confidence in me that I sort of just know it is going to be received well,
mm-hmm,
and it usually is.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm. Well, I love that too. That's so beautiful because it's in that like building of confidence in what you're describing. It feels like it's you're like I really believe that like when we assume certain things, like when we're like, oh, I'm just gonna be safe, then like that's sort of what we get reflected back. So it
mhm.
sounds like you've experienced in like practicing like, I'm just gonna name this and I'm just gonna, do it from that space that's actually where you know, it you in essence like get the very thing that you're needing because you're
Yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it doesn't feel agendaed in that. It just feels like this knowing that that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. When I first started this interview series, I was quite nervous on camera and it felt hard because it was a series that I was interviewing others to now I feel less nervous as time has gone on, but
Mhm.
it felt really hard. I noticed like the same edge where I was like, I kind of just want to say, oh, this feels scary or it feels hard.
Yeah.
'Cause I figured I knew that it would relax me, but I felt kind of in a bind. So kind of like, oh, but I'm supposed to be, I mean, this is one of those supposed to's, right? Like, but I'm like interviewing people. If I was just doing it my own Facebook Live, I think I would feel, okay, like I'll just name this because this is what's here.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but again, this kind of, it just brings me back to like I know this is a big part of sort of the edge you're playing, like, um, the shoulds that we have or the ideas of how we're supposed to show up or what we're supposed to look like and kind of how that um, I mean, I'm curious in your experience, like when you have felt that should, like how that feels different than this other experience of just saying, okay, I'm just going to be me and fully express, and not worry
Yeah.
about what the response is.
I think a lot of it has to do with the role that I think I'm in. Like you're saying, like you're the interviewer, so you need to show up a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I've felt that. I've been a workshop facilitator, and I've felt that sense of like, okay, I'm holding space for people, so I need to not be in my own experience in certain ways. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, but what seems to be the case for me is that I don't really seem to be able to compartmentalize to some degree. So this vulnerability is sort of a natural flowing of like this is just this is going to come out one way or another because it's present. And so what I noticed is in spaces where I was leading and I felt like anxious being in front of people, which I feel a little bit of just doing this,
Mm-hmm.
um, that I would name that, and it's like the energy in the room just like softened and relaxed. I thought because I'm the facilitator, I'm not supposed to let people know that I'm feeling anxious, that I'm nervous to be in front of them, that like anything's going on with me that's not like super solid grounded, you know. But it was kind of had the opposite effect that it seemed like the room felt safer as soon as I said like what was my authentic experience in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed to give permission for
Mm-hmm.
other people to be like, yeah, me too, I feel anxious as well. And it was like, and then I don't know, just a more relaxing environment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. hmm Yeah, I love that. And also just I mean, when you said it, I thought what I felt in my own being is it's like it lets a pressure cooker out. It's like, okay,
And
I can just be human. Like, I'm telling the truth. I mean, for me, there's something, I don't know, in my work, I really like to focus a lot on like telling the truth of one's experience,
yeah,
like what is actually here, not like what would I like to be feeling, like
yeah,
you know, what would be better to be feeling, because I find that when we can get deeper into the truth, then like you are even sharing, as you keep revealing it in front of another, it actually keeps, I mean, I even find revealing it just with myself over time, obviously, it just keeps kind of like taking off layers, and I feel more human, more intimate with life, and
yeah,
more, I mean, I feel more me, and then I can
exactly.
make decisions also from a place, like the choices that I make can be from an authentic place, um, where it's like, okay, I'm choosing this even though I feel this way. Well, okay, I'm in full choice. That's great, and then I don't hold on to it, or, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like this permission to be who we authentically are.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a natural modeling in that like people see us in that space and then they start to feel an internal sense of permission to do the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in some ways, I think I've had this thought a lot that, like, I don't know what you think of this, but that, like, the coaching healing space is really about, like, a big piece of it, or at least more, yeah, not everybody who's doing this, but I think is about just being, um, like, just being witnessed exactly as you are. There's a healing that just happens from being witnessed, and it being okay to be vulnerable, to be seen.
Yeah. I feel like I want to try putting the camera in a different spot.
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody asked, I don't know, let me see who it is, because I don't think you can see. Caro asked, how would you say this is different from being in your head? I think that was a while ago. If you want to ask the question again and maybe reframe it, then maybe we could explore your question. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that question. I think in the beginning it is being in my head, and it's sort of the way to return to my body or to mingle the two in some way. That I'm in my head because of all this stuff that's racing around up there, and it doesn't really feel very possible to just let that go and be present fully.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for some people, but for me, it feels like as I express, I sort of drop down.
Uh-huh. Oh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I start to, like I was saying earlier, like that's when I start to notice my body and notice my breath, and
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and notice like subtleties in the energy between me and others
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and within myself.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Like it's almost like I'm just trying to feel into it in my own system, but it sounds like and it sounds like you knew the answer to her question that she was asking, or you understood what she was asking. So great.
Mm.
Um, but it's like you're saying, it's like before you reveal that, it is kind of, it's like if you're anxious about something, you're like, oh, I'm anxious, and the energy's kind of going up. But once you name it, the energy starts to go down, and you're more present in your body.
Yeah,
And being more present in your body, you're then able to, and naming it to somebody else in the room, right, then you're able to open to what it's, I mean, to me it's like you're able to open to what is actually here, which is how we're more intimate with life. It's like how the fabric of, we feel the fabric of everything, we're present. So it sounds like that's kind of your way of doing that.
yeah, yeah. I like that you're weaving it into that, like feeling the interconnection with everything, with the larger us. That starts to feel more accessible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of just the question like, what do we do with the mental activity?
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of different things, options. we might do some breath work, we might exercise, we might be creative in some way. And for me, a way that seems to just naturally be is like, I'm just going to express it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of it through writing. I make videos. There's just something in me is just like, grab the camera, or like,
Mm-hmm.
now's a good time to engage with this person, or whatever it is, that
Mm-hmm.
that that just is one of my go-tos for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've been playing a lot lately with like actually just getting up and like either well I've been playing a lot with anger. So I've been dealing with like this kind of low energy, and I think it's like a certain kind of patterning in me. So then I'll just like get up and I'll just like roar really, really loud. um, I guess that's not so much about me being in mental activity, but also just like playing with like dancing around the house or movement. And so that's kind of been my current thing, because I've noticed that a lot of the mental energy happens when I'm kind of even sometimes when I'm like working with people, it's like we're so focused, there's so that there's like something that needs to kind of like we need to move the energy like away. Even though I mean the work I'm doing isn't in the mind, it's in the body, but even the body needs more movement, to get to
Yeah,
of that energy.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, dance is a big one for me too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and meditation, which seems so
Mm-hmm.
inactive, but there's so much going on in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
There was a question that I just had that I lost before that was something that we had talked about when we met outside of here. I'm trying to
Mhm.
think what it is, because it has to do with the topic of, I mean, it has to do with this topic of the truth of the moment. It's not so much about mental energy. Let's see if it comes back.
Mhm.
You'll see we'll see what comes next. um, oh, we were talking about, and I think this could be really interesting for our viewers. It just came into my mind. So, but the truth of the moment when you're creating from the moment, not from like a goal or a strategy. You
Yeah.
know? I remember that we had that conversation. So I'm wondering if you want to speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, I feel like that describes my life to a large degree. Um, Everything I create is basically spur of the moment. Um, I'm just doing whatever I'm doing, and some idea pops in, and there's some sense to grab my phone or or like turn on the camera or whatever it is. So it's like agendaless, but then I also have like maybe a few sentences in my mind of like what the
Yeah.
topic is, and
Mm-hmm.
and then there's this sense of trust that like whatever impulse that was to drive me in that direction, it's going to create something beautiful, something meaningful, something that's going to inspire people, and it pretty consistently seems to. So that just builds that deepening trust in just moment to moment to moment.
Mm-hmm. Um, and like it builds trust. I'm curious what the like felt experience of that is for you, because I think so many of us,
Yeah.
I mean, so many people, I'm really exploring this edge right now as well, especially in like creating a business, just letting my moment to moment process kind of come through, but having an
Yeah.
overall intention that, there's something that I'm here to do that I am doing that I want to continue to do. Um, but I'm curious, like, yeah, so I'm curious, I think so much of the way that we've been trained to live life is like you have a goal and you like, learn all these skills and you know, you have a strategy, put one foot in front of the other, like whether it's for like creating a business or even like, wanting to be in a relationship and putting energy into that
Yeah.
versus like actually kind of being in communion. I mean, I might even call it like devotion or communion to God or to love or to, the truth of the moment, we could say.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I'm curious for you, like I mean, it sounds like you're on a similar journey to that. And, we've also talked some outside of here. And I'm curious, like, what's the felt experience of doing it that way versus like how you used to do it? Because I know that
Mm.
you've lived another lifetime.
Yeah, I did. I kind of did the like American dream life, with the career and the house and the wife and yeah, and like everything felt very planned and like secure. Um, hmm. It feels like I've been guided to this place, like that it's not, it almost feels like it's not something that I'm choosing. That in some ways it's like nothing else feels right or feels resonant or feels like fulfilling anymore.
Mhm.
So I've sort of just to some degree been forced to surrender into this space
Mhm.
that all these things that used to be fun or all these agendas I used to have that like felt exciting, they just don't anymore. And what feels exciting now is letting go of all of that.
Mm.
So it more just feels like a natural, organic sort of process that happened for me after my divorce. Like that kind of made me go, wait, what am I doing? Did I even want that life?
Yeah. Mhm.
And then I ended up quitting my job and just dropping into like tons of spaciousness and alone time. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that I think put me in that moment to moment space because I don't have a lot on my calendar. I'm able to live that way.
I'm curious if you can kind of speak to the difference in your kind of felt experience or your internal experience of life, of doing it both of those different ways.
Felt experience, yeah.
Like, or even like what the, I mean, whether it's your kind of bodily felt experience or it's like, oh, I feel like way more alive moment to moment, you know, versus feeling kind of like stifled or I'm just curious.
Yeah, I feel more relaxed. I feel less frantic.
Hmm.
Um,
You seem
it
relaxed.
feels,
Your energy
yeah,
is very like, oh.
yeah, yeah. Um, hmm. I want to feel into my body because I can feel I'm in my mind with the question and
Yeah.
I'm wanting to like drop into what that sensation is. It's hard to remember how I used to feel.
Mm. Hmm.
I don't think I used to really feel my body. I would, I was like basically smoking pot every day, um, back then, and just, I don't think I was in touch with myself in that way. So to describe what I felt in my body, it was like, well, I think I was kind of just using substances to like, I don't know if it's escape my body or to feel into my body in a more, in an easier way. I don't know how to describe it, but there was like a disconnection at the same time. And now it feels more intimate with myself when I just stop and feel. There's not this need to like get away from what's going on inside me in the same way.
Yeah.
I'm noticing some self-consciousness that I don't always feel I have the best language for describing my feeling experience.
Mm.
It's something that I'm still sort of developing, while at the same time it feels like it's kind of what runs runs me.
Hmm.
So it's like I'm living it, but the words for it feel like they don't always show up in the way that I would like to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. I appreciate you naming that, and I'm also enjoying like the the process of sort of being with you as you were searching for the words and being in your felt experience. It's like that is a transmission and a communication. Like
Yeah.
even without whatever words you use, you know. And
Mm,
I'm noticing like a deep kind of well open up in my pelvis and sort of a deep sense of relaxation.
mm,
Um, and really feeling you and like actually feeling you in my heart, like my heart feels like it's kind of expanding and opening to you.
mm, mm. I feel more connected to you hearing that. It's like as you describe that sensation, I'm feeling it too.
Hmm. we use a lot of words. I love words and I use a lot of them, you know,
Hmm.
try to communicate things. And it seems like, you know, even just what this mini moment of what we're experiencing together, you know, that is, I think we're using those words in order to even try to feel, you know, try to like touch this experience. Yeah.
Hmm. Right.
I'm having this like moment of anxiety. I'm like, we're on camera. Like, who wants to be watching us?
Yeah.
Just sit
I've,
here and
I've
be
been,
like, you know, silent and in our like.
yeah, it was really interesting. I just did this 21-day video challenge thing where I was making a live video every day in a group. And I noticed my evolution was moving to more and more silence and longer videos.
Hmm.
That pressure to like be entertaining or be showing up a certain way for other people,
Hmm.
it started softening. And then I started getting feedback from people that those were their favorite moments.
Hmm.
And I would just stop. And I don't know that that resonates for everyone. I think for some people that might
Hmm.
um, get like boring, or just in some moments that might not be the right experience for them. But for some people, it's like that's what they're longing for,
Yeah.
is the space between.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I notice I have a very similar experience, not so much on this show, but just on showing up on video of I mean, of what you started with in those days of like, you know, I have to say something that's interesting, that's informative. And yet I think it's true that it's really people's energy that comes through, or it's really the like I mean, I think this is sort of the work that you're doing, and you know, even our interest in this topic. It's like, to me, it's being with what is in the moment. It's allowing the energy of the person, you know, as they are to come through. And I think that's what, personally, I think that's what I'm drawn to.
Hmm.
Like if somebody is really silent and like that's them and that's their energy, then I'm drawn to it. You know, if somebody's like, oh, I have a million things to say right now, but it's
Yeah.
really, you know, it's their beingness, then, you know, I'm often drawn to that. And I'm
Hmm.
often drawn to what's beyond people's words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there are certain coaches that I don't even really like track or watch, that I'm actually not even as into what their message is, but something about their energy is so compelling, and I feel like I learn from it, or I, you know, some part of me gets activated or turned on by it.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like my favorite part of our interview so far was when we just stopped and like smiled at each other.
Yeah.
That that's when I felt you the most. And maybe it was because I wasn't trying to access anything.
Mhm.
I was just experiencing.
Mhm. Yeah, I felt that too. I also feel like this I've had this curiosity for a long time, because I love doing this show, because I love the people that come on, and I love interviewing, and I'm so curious about people's experience. Um, and I'm always kind of at this edge in myself of like, the curiosity is very alive and real, and it feels like it's as real as us sitting here and being quiet together. But sometimes it's hard to keep that connected to that sense of like total just relaxation, total ease, you know, that I was experiencing in that moment that we shared.
Mm. Even as the one being interviewed, I feel that pressure too, like to say the next thing if you're not saying anything.
Yeah.
Because there are thoughts that pop in, and I'm like, I could go down that road, but
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Well, that's actually, you just named sort of what my experience is in it, because it's like so many thoughts come in, right? And it's like, for me, it's like, what's the deepest, not the deepest curiosity, but what comes from the sort of, yeah, what's happening from the deepest core of me? Like, what's the kind of what we're, this topic is like, what's the truth of the moment, you know?
Yeah.
What's the edge? No, it's not even the edge right there, but what is the next thing arising in my experience?
Yeah. Something that's coming up for me is I did a video recently uh, called Facebook Live as a meditation.
Hmm.
And I went on there and basically I was meditating and then I suddenly thought, why don't I just do it live? And instead of being completely internal, I will express what's going on inside. And it was this really flowing, gentle, like it lasted almost an hour, far longer than any other videos I'd made. And people were really engaged. And there was something about the spaciousness
Hmm.
that drew people to it.
Hmm.
Um, I think maybe part of why I'm bringing that up is because I feel like meditation is essentially that space of being in the truth of the moment and being present with what is, and that it ultimately kind of comes down to being in our hearts. Like anything can be a meditation.
Mhm.
It sort of, yeah, for me feels like a heart space. So I like bringing in those like different concepts and seeing how we're already living these states of being that we're looking for.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And maybe it just requires like a shift of focus in some way.
Could you give us like an example, a sample of what you're, I mean, I know we're kind of in it and we're in that field, but even, um, you know, because it's like the idea that we're living it already, it's just a shift in consciousness. What is there? Yeah. Is there something that you can share or lead us in?
I don't know. It feels like it shows up when it shows up
Okay.
that I suddenly remember, like have that insight of like, oh right,
Mm.
there's nowhere else to be.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe I can sort of lead something just speaking to that space. Um, I think, yeah, what part of what this truth of the moment topic means for me. It's funny because I'm starting a sentence without knowing what my next sentence will be. This is something I do. It's like kind of a stream of consciousness, and then I just see what comes out,
Yeah.
which I do a lot with writing, but I'm not as confident and practiced in it, just speaking it. So I started to speak, and then I just wanted to like share what's going on for me. Um, so yeah, sometimes I just start with a sentence and see what comes out. Like, so here's what truth of the moment means to me. Pause, see what comes. And if nothing comes, can I be comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
Or can I be comfortable with being uncomfortable? Or just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
allow it?
It's like completely merging with the experience of the moment.
Yeah. It's a lot of it just seems to come down to noticing resistance
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and just softening.
Mm-hmm. Or noticing, I'm also thinking like noticing when you're trying to be somewhere else, you know, or you're trying to experience something different, which is obviously another form of resistance.
Right.
But I find that, I mean, that's the place, when you said that, that's what came alive for me. Like, that's the place where it's like, yeah, you know, where I'm wanting something different to be happening.
Right. Which is so innocent and beautiful. And that's part of what can put us in that heart space is remembering that. Like everything that we're doing to resist is all it's just a child that doesn't like its current experience, that it doesn't match its preference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's like a natural compassion that arises from that perspective of innocence.
And it's also just the next thing that's arising.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like even resistance, right? It's like, okay, well now I have resistance. Okay, that's what's here.
Yeah. I think at times it's like it's a like a reframing it in some heart-centered way, and at other times it's dropping back to having no frame at all, or just um kind of that space of it's simply what is.
Hmm.
I don't need to try to say why it's a good thing or a bad thing, or
Yeah,
just like you said, it's just happening.
yeah, yeah. So you're sort of differentiating those two places as like the heart space is more like you're sort of intentionally opening, like even to the innocence of the child. Like, oh, you're just
Yeah.
feeling this, and there's kind of a like being with that in a more sort of embracing way, we could say, or loving way, versus like the experience of just kind of allowing the stream to kind of unfold and being able
Yeah.
to sort of watch it or be with it and allow the next thing to, you know, continue to just like be present to the unfolding experience.
Yeah. And as you say that, they both feel like heart spaces or,
Mm-hmm.
locationless. But yeah, just a gentle unfolding. And it does seem, yeah, at times it's like more action oriented. Like I'm going to be the loving parent, or I'm going to choose compassion. And other times there's nothing at all to do. It's more of a witnessing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Or I don't know what your experience is of this, but you know, I've also been playing with that with like I'm gonna choose to take this risk. Like say I write something or it feels edgy to post or I don't know, just you know, or like I'm feeling tired, but I'm like wanting like I can feel another action that's like wanting to kind of happen. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that experience, but it's like taking those risks anyway, like saying, okay, I'm going to do this. Um,
Yeah.
but that's coming from actually like a deeper well inside. Like it's coming from the truth of
Yeah.
the moment. It's not coming from like, I need to do this because that will mean A, B, C, or D.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this in terms of boundaries as well, because just like inspired action, it feels like something can come from like that deep well inside that you're describing. Like something just wants to move us, even if it feels risky or not the right time or whatever. And then there seems to be another place that's more fear-based and security oriented that I think a lot of people's choices come from and boundaries come from. Um, and my feeling around it is it just kind of perpetuates that same energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Meaning that the one that's more conditioned, like a conditioned response, is perpetuating more of the same energy. But if you're really living in like an innocent, truthful way of what's emerging in your moment to moment experience, even if that does mean like, oh, I'm going to take this risk right now, or I'm going to, you know, I'm super anxious and I'm going to do this anyway. Um, if that's
Yeah,
coming from the right, if that's coming from like what is just alive without kind of free of that conditioning, then it will lead to more of the same. Like it will lead to more of that kind of aliveness and spontaneity and kind of love and connection to one's
yeah,
experience, you know, to the one's
yeah.
experience and the experience of all life. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Or like doing something out of character, right? It's whatever's going on inside us that feels like there's a hesitation to do it, but somehow we know we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that seems to expand us into more of who we are. It takes away that box of like, here's who I think I am, here's how I think I should show up, here's what's appropriate, here's what's gonna like fit my identity as like a safe person or
Mm-hmm.
a conscious person, or there's something in me that wants to challenge all that, that like
Yeah.
welcomes opportunities to bust outside this box of who I think I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think what you're so speaking so eloquently and beautifully too is just how we can become identified with something. So even like being authentic can become an identity that then we're kind of, oh, I'm this is how it is to be authentic, right?
Yeah,
Not
totally.
actually it's not actually what is alive in the moment. It's what we've kind of trained ourselves to do. You know, also
Yeah,
like you're saying being conscious, right? So then you explore, I mean, it's really also exploring the shadow then, right? Like if you explore like the disowned parts, if you explore like, oh, I'm unconscious. Like I'm going to explore the ways that all the ways that I'm unconscious. It's like you're bringing aliveness, and you're also in the truth again, right? And there's more juiciness there to your experience and
yeah.
challenging identities. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because someone just sort of, I welcomed myself to be like called out or challenged um, in a group last night, and someone said like, you seem like you may be identifying with like the vulnerable man. You know, you're the vulnerable man, and like there's an identity wrapped around that. And and someone else agreed, and I was like, yeah, this is something I really want to look at. Like, is there a way that this beautiful expression that I'm getting so much wonderful feedback about people being inspired around, and that feels so good and so right for me, is there a way that there's some sort of attachment forming to being that in a specific way
Mm-hmm.
that limits me from being fully myself and and mutes my honesty in some way?
Got it. So it strikes me. I so appreciate you sharing that, and it just strikes me how it's like we literally, I mean, to not get in constructed identities over and over again and to become identified with things, like it feels like we constantly have to like be, I want to say be doing the work, that's not the best word for it, but be, you know, looking at ourselves and getting feedback and kind of playing with different ways of being. You know, we can't it does require, I think it requires like really kind of looking at our edges, or really looking at what the truth is, or the thing that we're not telling us, you know, we're not being honest with ourselves about, or we're not being
Mm.
honest with others about. Mm-hmm.
Right. That gets into what you're saying about the exploring the shadow.
Yeah.
Like, what are we not seeing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and how do we receive feedback around that?
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you received it really well last night.
Yeah, well, I had a mixture of curiosity and defensiveness. Like, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I don't think I've heard this from anyone yet. And then I started to feel like, well, maybe they're just like seeing their own shit in me,
Yeah.
you know, and starting to feel like maybe they're just projecting and I'm actually doing it perfect. And
Yeah.
I'm just totally trusting the flow. I don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, it was interesting to notice all that come up and go back and forth. And I didn't respond right away because I felt like I want to sit with this and like process through it a little bit on my own first before I respond.
Mm-hmm.
And after I did feel like I was more in that curious space again of like wanting to explore myself and wanting to look for how it could be true.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can learn in some way. Yeah.
It just strikes me also that it's like, so it's this whole, you know, the difficulty of being human, because, you know, sure, there there could be, I mean, when you were talking, this is what I was thinking. It's like, there may be ways that that's true, but it's not happening all the time, right? Because we're constantly sort of shifting in terms of who we are and how we show up. I
Yeah.
think especially when we're playing at these kind of edges, right? Like especially when we're exploring what's true right now, what's true right now, what's true right now. Um, so it's interesting, right? Because it's for then somebody crystallizes it and says, oh, you know, I think you're not. I think you're playing this vulnerable man, and it may be that like in moments there's like you're stuck in an identity, and it may be in other moments you're not. You know, um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of
That feels true.
what'd you say?
Yeah. That feels true. It
Yeah.
feels like just really authentic, flowing truth of the moment. And then, but sometimes I do feel like this, I don't know, this, the way that like the walls are closing a little bit around me and feeling like I need to keep being this, or this is like how I'm serving.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a big one for me. Like there's a part of me that's looking for like my purpose in the world and how I'm serving and trying to get clarity around that
Hmm.
and wanting to attach to some, oh, I think it looks like this. And then as I have that desire to be something specific, I can't really fully be myself is the way it feels.
Yeah, I feel this very strongly in entering. I didn't feel this as a therapist. I don't feel this as a therapist so much, but something about the sort of online coaching space and sort of having a niche, even though I know what the work is that I do, but I can, it's like who I am with different people. Like I do such deep healing work and trauma work and whatnot. And it's like, and coaching work. And it's like, I can, with each different person, I really can show up and bring the medicine that they need. Um, you know, so I find, I don't know, I can relate to that, that it can be, um, that can feel limiting, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm, like you just said, I'm supposed to show up in this way and this is supposed to be my message, right? But when the message is really just this is me, or this is what I'm on fire about right now, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and it's all, I mean, we could say like for both of us, it's all around the same topic, right? Like I'm doing this interview series because I've always been on fire about transformation, you know, since I was a little kid. And it's what I've
Yeah.
dedicated my life to, like this and, you know, spiritual awakening and practice. But the way that that continues to sort of shift as I move through my life, um, I've never been able to find one thing where I'm like, you know, this is the end all be all. It's a combination of kind of like my life experience with various practices and with various different, you know, teachings and various different healing modalities I've learned. So yeah, it feels it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm in the same sort of revealing my own, feels a little vulnerable because it's like I'm in the same question of what,
Yeah.
you know, how do I mean, I can do what you do. I can just express myself very rawly and openly and freely, right?
Yeah.
But and I can say what I do with people, and it's not like it shifts, but we're in that place of potential, like we're in that place of space, right?
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
is alive for this person? What's the healing that they need? Like how are they in my case, it's like I'm often looking at like how is their nervous system wired? Like how, you know, what do they need? How do we need to work with them so that they can move through trauma, so that they can find it on their own, so that they can, you know, kind of like find new ways of living that are more enlivening. But that's different for every person. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Yeah. This is, I wonder if you have this too. I have this feeling, this, when people ask what I do, it's, I don't know what to say other than it's intuitive. Like it's whatever shows up, I respond to.
Hmm.
And so I feel like it's been challenging for me to market myself
Hmm.
because I don't know how to put that into words sometimes. And I think what you and I are doing is putting it into words in a way of like,
Yeah.
it's just the moment. And it feels so freeing to open it up in that way. Because this, like this interview, what we're talking about, I had no idea if we were going to talk about anything that we
Yeah.
have. And
So
it
true.
feels alive. It feels exciting
Yeah. Hmm.
to
Hmm.
just flow with whatever's happening. And that's how my sessions feel.
Hmm.
I imagine yours do too. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's helpful. This is actually sort of a helpful space to be in and explore with you because it's definitely something that I've been curious about. And actually, ironically, the person who's coming on next week, Haley Bass, is probably going to be talking about marketing from this kind of heart-centered, more moment-to-moment place.
Oh,
Which
awesome.
she does. I don't know if you
Mhm.
know her, but yeah,
Sounds familiar, the
I
name.
think she's in the Bay Area. Anyway, um, yeah, yeah, but it's an interesting edge, right? Because like you're even saying, you're like you showing up authentically, and I've been tracking you for a while, you know, online and all the different ways that you do. It's like even the way you show up is different every single moment. Like it's not. I never see you like, yes, you're being honest. Yes, you're telling the truth of your experience, but I never really see you. I don't know. I don't see it as like kind of like fluid. I see it more as like oh, you're showing up in this way today. Like the other day, you were doing like some rage video that I came on and saw. And then in another one, you're talking about like sort of what it's like to be on an intimate edge with a partner, uh, and you're just sort of speaking the truth of what comes through. Um, so, and in
Yeah.
some ways, what I really love about what you're doing is that I feel like you're living it instead of talking about it, and that's what you're really showing people online. So the hope is that, well, I would say from a marketing perspective, or from a perspective of people being drawn to you or wanting to work with you, my hope is that just the fact that you're kind of like being you, like that's what you're a stand for. You're a stand for the flowing, changing Troy, and
Yeah.
you're a stand in that for other people,
Mm-hmm.
and you're a stand for like vulnerability and being truthful and not having it all together. And
Yeah.
what's funny is that I remember, knowing you when you first, like I said, when you first came out of your marriage, and I've been tracking this. I've been like feeling this the whole conversation, but just like that. Maybe at that point you were like, I know myself as Troy, and I'm this way and that way, and yet you like you felt actually like in that knowing place, you actually felt way more up here, like you named, and like way kind of more like I couldn't actually feel you and like in the same way,
Mm-hmm.
So it's ironic by actually sort of like allowing yourself to be fully who you are and not needing to show up in any particular way. It's not ironic, but it makes sense. But you know, you're flowing as you, and you're more settled, and you're more there's like way more of a moment to moment aliveness that's felt through your being.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, it feels like that. And I feel this impulse to name that this time of my life has also been the darkest time. It's also been
Mm.
the most shadow, the most frustration, the most like wanting to just escape, uh, but not choosing to. Like I stopped around the time I met you, I stopped drinking and smoking pot, and like I just started to prefer sobriety, even though it's torturous at times.
Uh-huh.
And really, in the past year, it's revved up to like the really the deepest shadow experiences of my life that I'm still in. It's this heavy grieving process I've been in. So it's interesting to have this dual experience of feeling the most like confident and expressed and trusting and creative that I've ever been, probably. And at the same time, feeling like so immersed in this experience of like, I don't even know if I want to be here sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just felt like I wanted to just share like both sides of that, that
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
all,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah,
that's what you just named is really at the heart of my journey, and also the work that I do, which is that in facing your shadow, and bringing and also witnessing it, like you bring light to it, because you're not
right.
avoiding it. It's not in the shadows. It makes you more, and in facing, it's not in the darkness. That darkness isn't in the shadows anymore, and it makes you more of who you are, and it makes you
Yeah.
more available to life, right? And it
Mhm.
also, it's like the feeling I have as we're talking, and I've had throughout the conversation, but even right now as we talk about this, is it's like it's of the earth. It's like I can feel, like I can sort of feel the depths of me right now, as we're in this, even talking about it. It's like it means that it's like you have everything.
Yeah,
You're everything and nothing at the same time, because you're feeling it all.
yeah, it's a
It's
much fuller
Yeah.
experience. Like, yeah,
I mean, for me, it's like juicy and sexy and, like
yeah,
all kinds of things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I feel myself opening to that, and but it's like there's a lot of pain in that
Mm-hmm.
process,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like this sense of a momentum that is opening me more and more.
Yeah.
That's really exciting when I feel into like where all this is headed.
Mm, mm. Beautiful. Well, I really just honor you and commend you for doing that work and both being in the moment and not knowing what the next moment is going to bring, and also that being, facing the darkness and facing all of your shadows.
Mm, thank you.
Yeah.
You too.
Yeah. I'm curious. I mean, we should probably be wrapping up, but I'm curious. Have you experienced a lot of resistance going into the darkness, or has it been more of like you're kind of able to really, like, as we're talking about, be in the truth of the moment, like settle into the pain, not settle into it, but allow it.
Yeah, both. Um, I think for the most part, I'm pretty open to just sitting with it. And I do a lot of meditation. That's kind of my go-to when that arises, to just sit in that space, pretty agendaless, and be more of a witness
Mm-hmm.
to that, whatever's unfolding inside me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also distract myself with my phone, and I feel like I make excuses for myself to pull away from that space too, because I just get so tired of it. And I don't know, maybe it's intuitive though.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I think I'm like judging it as I should stay there, and
Yeah.
other times it feels like, no, actually it's like time to shift the energy and do something different, even if it's something I judge as a distraction.
I mean, I think that that's extremely important, and more as I've gone on in my own process and just in my work with others, to be able to sometimes even to be able to consciously choose to go into it and then come out and see that you have the choice and the agency to do so,
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
think is really important.
Mm.
But also being able to do that from a more regulated nervous system, like going
Yeah.
to your edge, and then, like, I think it builds a lot of, like I said, choice, but it also builds a lot of strength and power and courage to be able to go there, experience it, and also know that you can kind of pull yourself out,
Yeah. So
or
it doesn't feel just
find other
completely
resources.
disempowering.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it is a very disempowered feeling that like life is just happening to me
Yeah.
at times, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm in this healing process, and
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. So yeah, maybe it's useful sometimes to, like you said, remind ourselves like, and I have choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me, and even what I sort of try to teach or work with clients around is just that it's um, just we can start doing that from a conscious place,
Yeah.
because going onto your phone, right? Everybody does it, but it's like one goes onto their phone, right? But that's not as conscious as saying, "Hey, I'm going to stop and I'm going to actually go do something different right now,"
Hmm.
or I'm going to
Right.
breathe. I'm going to breathe through my body and let it release, whatever is the
Yeah.
whatever that is. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing in the darkness piece, because it wasn't named, and it does feel like, as our unknown conversation has unfolded,
Yeah.
I think we really actually covered the topic really well. So this is yeah, but yeah, this experiment, I think, has been a really good. It, it's been it has sort of proved itself in the sense of the topic, right? That when we can just follow what's really alive, it will lead to, um, you know, what wants to be said, what wants to be known, um,
Yeah.
and it sort of then gets to be more divinely channeled through us,
Yeah.
versus us being so in charge of like having an agenda and having it go somewhere.
Yeah. And I notice I tend to consistently feel lighter, like I'm feeling lighter right now,
Oh.
and just letting that be,
Mm.
and having it received so beautifully. And yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's so fun. I love playing in this way. This is like my favorite way to play.
Mhm.
I'm like, we should just do this. We should do this more often online. It would be really interesting. Let's do it. We'll start it.
Totally. We
Yeah,
don't even have to call it an interview. We can just be like,
yeah,
we're just gonna hang out, talk about whatever.
yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm very inspired by, how you've been showing up and, yeah, just what I've seen of you and, just who you are, your being, you're becoming through your being.
Mm.
Makes sense. That's what came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you want to, as we end, I'd love for the people watching to know how they can follow you and see more of your videos and your writings, and also, you know, how they might work with you as a coach or a counselor, what your programs are right now, or what your offerings are.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if people go on my Facebook profile, just type in my first and last name, Troy Cohen. Um, it has a link to my website, uh, which is wordpress.troycohen.com. And on the website, it has my blog and a link to like my services and what I offer, which, as we've been talking about here, I don't have a lot of specifics around because it's kind of just
Yeah.
whatever's in the flow.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's anything you invited me to offer that I haven't.
No,
But
I
yeah,
think it's just
my
that.
Facebook page is where I share a lot. Oh, I have a YouTube channel too.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Oh, cool.
with just type in my name there as well.
So it sounds like if people want to work with you like individually, because it sounds like that's the work you're doing, that they can just get in touch with you and you'll customize a plan for them based on
Yeah,
what's alive. Yeah. Cool.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
I am available for individual one-on-one stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I would totally take Troy up on that offer. I'm sure it will be super juicy and super deep. So highly recommended. And yeah. And once again, my name is Lori Beth Goldman, and I do this interview series weekly. The interview series is Exploring Genuine Transformation, and I've been bringing on really exciting speakers. There's 7 of them. They're on my Facebook page right now, and they're probably going to be transferred either to a YouTube channel or to a Facebook group that then everybody who's watching is welcome to be a part of. And I am a psychotherapist, a coach, and a healer, and I've been doing this work for a really, really long time. And I do basically the heart of my work is deep healing and transformational work. I go super deep with people. I do a lot of work through the body and through the emotions in your energy body. And we just in working with me we clear long-standing blocks and dissolve just blockages in the body. And I also am very well versed in trauma. And I really love helping people rewire their nervous system and kind of hardwire happiness. And when I say hardwire happiness, it's really about, being able to work with your particular body and psyche in such a moment to moment way, like in some of the ways that Troy and I have been talking about, so that you can really, basically so you can heal yourself, so you can learn to be with yourself. And the purpose of my work, beyond all, and I'll also add, I do a lot with working with shadow. And I'm really like a warrior of darkness. Like I really go into those places that I can sit with people and any feeling, sensation, experience that anybody is having, and we just go right there and we clear it. And so, but yeah, so the purpose of my work is really lasting transformation and just a deep intimacy with life. Like above all else, like yes, people feel great and they feel like you feel way more alive in your life and then feel ready to create what you want to create in whatever area of life that is. But my main intention is just so that people feel more free and people feel more alive and more intimate with all of life, and so that you can enjoy every moment. So if you're interested in working with me, right now I'm offering intensive individual containers, and I do 3, 6, and 9 months, but I way prefer working with people for 9 months because we're really able to do you know, the work is just so powerful, and you will not recognize yourself on the other side of that. So if you are interested in working with me, please reach out to me, and please also, you know, I would love to continue seeing you on this show. So, you know, stay tuned to my Facebook page for, you know, weekly announcements about who's coming on. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Troy. And yeah, see everybody next week. Bye.